The Discovery, Chapter 6, The Nightmares. David walked through a thick fog. He couldn't see more than 10 feet in front of his face. The only sound that filled the air was the faint whistling of the breeze as the fog rolled over him and carried on into oblivion.
Hello?
David's voice echoed through the air, slowly fading into nothing.
Is there anyone here?
He called out. Again, there was no answer. David continued to blindly walk forward in the haze, his pace slow but cautious. He hoped that further ahead there would be answers in the thick mist. He walked for hours, calling out the whole time, but there was never an answer, just the fog and the whistling breeze. Out of the corner of his eye he saw dark blue mist, but as soon as he turned to look, it was gone. Only the same gray haze that surrounded him gently floated about in its place. Reluctantly, he decided to press on. As he pushed forward, David couldn't help the sinking feeling that he was being watched. He searched everywhere, but there was nothing but fog. It seemed to stretch on forever. No matter where he looked, it was all he could see. It was all that was present. The damn fog was the only thing that seemed to exist anymore. Until he heard voices.
Hello?
David called. The voices became louder.
Is anyone there? I can hear you. Show yourselves.
Silence.
Who are you?
You know exactly who we are, David. A sickly voice spoke through the fog.
Isaac?
Why didn't you save us, David? A new voice called. David stammered. You killed us, David. A third voice spoke. It was so low and menacing that it made David shake.
No, I tried. I couldn't get the door to open.
David screamed, tears now filling his vision.
You killed us, David. It's all your fault.
All three voices screamed in unison.
No, I didn't mean to. God, I'm so sorry.
David's tears flowed freely as he fell to his knees and whimpered. The fog suddenly vanished, leaving a sobbing David kneeling in an open field. Sensing that something was suddenly different, David managed to stop his sobbing and looked up, tear streaks still evident on his face. Standing there, not 10 feet in front of him, were his friends. Only they weren't. Where there had been flesh, there was now only bone. Where there had been hair, there was now only a ghostly mist. They had a ghastly appearance, their clothes torn and burned, and their faces, or rather skulls, gave no sign of emotion. They looked as dead as they truly were, the only sign of life being the fact that they were standing not 10 feet in front of David. David could only stare at the ghostly remains of his friends. A knot formed in his throat and his stomach twisted upon seeing their forms.
Isaac, Roman, Rich, I'm so sorry.
Sorry won't bring us back, David.
With that, the figures of the fallen crew vanished in the wind. Not even a trace was left behind as they disappeared.
No, wait, please, I'm sorry!
David awoke in a cold sweat, panting heavily. He looked around the room and saw it was the same white and blue room he woke up in 3 weeks before.
Oh, yeah.
As he calmed himself and slowed his breathing, David recalled the events of the previous day. He was living with midnight now. As for the nightmare, well, it wasn't the first time he experienced it. David had the same nightmare almost every night. He dreaded going to sleep because of it. Rolling over to the side, he noticed the moonlight filtering through the window. His eyes then fell to the clock on the dresser. 5:27 a.m.
Damn. Fuck going back to sleep, I need some fresh air.
David groggily said to himself. David rolled out of bed and grabbed his clothes off of the floor. He slipped them on quickly and made for the door. He still didn't have shoes, but a trip to the seamstress the week before had promised a pair of shoes that would actually fit within the next few days. As David walked through the dark house only an hour or so before sunrise, he found it oddly peaceful. His footsteps made a little noise on the hardwood floor, and the dark nature of the cozy little house proved very calming after his nightmare. David found himself at the front door and opened it, the early morning breeze bringing him a slight chill as he stepped outside. Looking to his right, he saw 2 rocking chairs sitting beside a small table.
Maybe watching the sunrise will be nice,
David said softly. David sat in the chair and lost himself in thought.
Everything that's happened, everything the ponies have done for me, I don't deserve it. It's all my fault. If they knew, what would they think of me? I should have tightened that ship, not them.
David was startled from his thoughts when he heard the front door open. He swiveled his head to see Midnight walking over to him with a blanket wrapped around her barrel.
Did you, have a hard time sleeping?
She asked.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Have any interesting dreams?
Midnight asked inquisitively.
No, not really.
David said quickly.
Okay, I guess that was a bit of a sore subject then.
Midnight mentally chastised.
Well, I hope you sleep better tomorrow.
Midnight said with fake enthusiasm.
Yeah, how about you? Did you have a hard time sleeping too?
David asked a little too eagerly.
Yeah, I guess it was a little hard to sleep last night. Just a little unused to having guests.
Midnight chuckled awkwardly, before tapering off and falling silent for a few seconds.
Especially guests from another world.
Midnight grinned, but David frowned, causing the same grin to drop right off of Midnight's face.
What's wrong? I didn't mean to offend you, if that's it. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just... I'm an alien. I guess that's just... still sinking in. Not sure if I'll ever really belong here.
Hey, no, don't say that. You might look a little different, sure, but don't forget, we're still very much the same.
Midnight said as she hopped onto the chair opposite of David.
Just because you're different doesn't mean that you don't fit in. In fact, if anything, that just makes you more likable.
David slowly turned his head to look at her, a sad smile forcing his way into his face before speaking.
Thanks.
The duo fell into a comfortable silence before David, shivering, caught Midnight's eye.
Are you cold? You can hug my blanket if you want.
Thanks, Midnight, but I'm okay. Besides, if you gave me your blanket, then you'd just be cold.
I have fur. I'll be alright.
She said, already levitating the blanket off of her body.
Really, I'm fine, Midnight. You don't have to...
David started, only to be cut off by the blanket forcing itself onto his body. Midnight's body heat still filling the blanket as it reached David felt absolutely divine. It was a complete contrast to the cold world surrounding them.
Damn, are ponies just little furnaces?
David wrapped himself in the blanket before turning to Midnight.
Thank you. Really, you didn't have to.
He said, trying desperately to hide just how much he appreciated the gesture.
No problem.
Midnight said with a smile. David felt every fiber of his being bathed in the warmth of Midnight's blanket as the two sat together. The only light in the early morning night sky was the beautiful star displayed in the moon. Midnight and David sat there in relative comfort for a few minutes before David declared to break the silence.
You know, my favorite part about making the trip to Horizon 5 was just after we left Earth. Just being able to look out the cockpit window and see the stars without any obstructions before we went into cryo. I think that was the most amazing moment of my life.
How does it compare to this?
Midnight replied, turning to see David's eyes still glued to the sky.
You know, I gotta say, this is pretty close.
David said, turning to smile at Midnight.
I've always loved the night sky, especially here. There's so little light pollution that you can see everything. We don't get that many places on Earth anymore. Or at least we didn't. I don't know about now.
Yeah, the night sky has always been one of my favorite things about Equestria. I always wanted to be an astronomer, spending my time looking up at the sky, wondering what was out there. Most ponies are just too busy to stop and enjoy the stars for a moment.
Sounds like Earth then. Funny, you wanted to be an astronomer. Maybe make first contact one day, but it looked like the alien came to you instead.
David said with a slightly forced chuckle.
Yeah, I guess so.
Midnight stuttered. David looked over at her to find that she was shivering.
Midnight, you're shivering. Here, take the blanket back.
No, I'm fine. Promise.
Midnight faked a smile through chattering teeth.
I'm not gonna sit here and be warm while you shiver over there. Either take the blanket back or I'm gonna go inside and get another one.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I get that you're trying to be nice, but you're cold. Alright, you know what? You're definitely taking this back.
But I want to snuggle with you under the blanket.
Midnight thought with a pout. David moved to get up, but was stopped by Midnight's magic.
Wait, I have an idea.
And what might that be?
David asked with a raised eyebrow.
I'm just gonna go for it. Please don't get upset, please don't get upset.
Midnight thought to herself. Midnight hopped off of the chair and shakily walked over towards David. Using her magic, she pulled the blanket off of his body and hopped up onto his lap, earning a surprised yelp from him. Then she wrapped the blanket around both of their bodies as she nuzzled her head against his shoulder. David was startled, but not too surprised.
Well, pretty much every mare I've met has been cuddly with me at some point so far, so why should Midnight be any different, I think?
The concept of personal space seemed completely alien to the little equines. Taking a moment to let her stop squirming in his lap, David wrapped his arms around her barrel and pulled her body against his.
Oh my god, she is a little furnace. How was she even cold?
That's much better. So warm and cozy.
Midnight gave a happy sigh.
Mission accomplished.
Midnight happily proclaimed in her head.
Well, I'm glad we found a compromise.
David chuckled. With his hands awkwardly holding on to Midnight's body and her warm fur all too tempting, David followed his instincts and started rubbing her back with his left hand as he brought his right hand up to scratch her ears.
What do you... Oh, that's nice.
Midnight gave a happy sigh as David's fingers found their marks and scratched her soft ears.
You ponies, I swear, the ears are like the easiest way to your hearts.
David said, shaking his head.
Not our fault it feels so nice. Just keep scratching.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Midnight's becoming more and more obvious. Eventually, she's just gonna outright say something. And a small part of me thinks that is gonna happen very soon. Anyways, let's get on to our sweet donators. Top donators are 630, J Tinman, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Stu Hex, Swordbrother and Mordred, Omicron Library, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Riot Soul, Baddest Waffle, Shadow Moon, Luigi88, and many more irresistible people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.